Welcome back to another edition of the Net Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite. We also have joining us today Rutgers beat writer Chris Nalwasky and Rutgers beat writer Craig Epstein. Guys, we got a lot of topics to cover today. Sort of a grab bag thing of football and basketball. First thing off the top, though, we had the spring game this past weekend, which culminates spring practice. So now they move on to about a month off before they start their summer workouts and things like that. And the additional freshmen can get on campus. So guys, now that you can actually talk about some things, because we actually all, as the public, got to see some Rutgers football played, what were some of your high-level thoughts about how the spring game went? Chris, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so obviously the weather wasn't the best for the spring game. I know Richie was there early. He kind of let me stay home for this one, so much appreciated to him for that. But yeah, just overall, I mean, it was really windy. It was cold, so it was hard to get a feel for really the offense and what the quarterbacks could do. I mean, I'm sure Greg Schiano was kind of happy about that. You know, they kind of didn't have to reveal much and could just say, oh, you know, the weather affected everything, blah blah blah. But yeah, I mean, the quarterbacks did okay. I mean, they completed a couple passes. I think they made the right reads and the right decisions. They just weren't accurate a lot. But I thought the running game did really well. That's what you're really going to see. And, you know, Kirk Soraka running the show. He wants to run the ball, and Rutgers has, like, I don't know, 5 running backs at least that could run the ball. Aaron Young really impressed me a lot. I think he's back from his injuries that he's dealt with. He ran really physical. He was very aggressive, and that was what the coaches kind of talked about all spring. So he wasn't, you know, he didn't shy away from contact. He went right after you. Al-Shadi Shalom did pretty well too. Obviously Nungai and you know, Sam Brown, you know, they didn't play. You saw the freshman Jasson Benjamin get some carries and a couple walk-ons that did pretty well too. I guess the offensive line maybe improved a little bit. They got some pieces. They got some depth pieces now that are coming along. The wide receiver room, they're still inexperienced right now. There are a couple veterans like Isaiah Washington is stepping up a little bit. Christian Dremel, you know, he won the what's called the Offensive Most Improved Award in the spring. He's another senior veteran guy who's been there a while. From a walk-on who's kind of stepped up a little bit, but they're probably definitely going to need to add someone there. We'll probably talk about that later at some point. But yeah, defensively, I thought the defense is honestly probably going to be the strength again of the team. The defensive line has depth. You even saw like someone like Stanley Dennis really make an impact in this one, and they did rest some starters too. Obviously, you know, no sense of putting them out there in a game like this and the weather like this. They've all played a lot of snaps already. So yeah, I mean, you know, Bo Masco is a freshman who kind of you know caught my eye too. He's very physical. And then you know you saw some new guys like Eric Rogers and Flip Dixon back there. So just overall, I mean, I guess the spring game was the spring game. You know, it was low scoring. I guess we kind of joked that you know, if you could lose a spring game, maybe they lost the spring game a little bit just because the weather was bad. There wasn't a lot of fans. The offense didn't really do as much, but you know, there's not much you can expect in weather like this. But just overall, I guess the coaches now and players have some film they can look at, and they can learn from it going forward.
What about you, Craig? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think it's kind of just kind of what you expect from a spring game. A lot of very vanilla, not really showing much offense. And the weather didn't help on it, as you saw. I mean, there was a bunch of drops, a bunch of kind of just these little mistakes that like you wouldn't expect, but you know, the weather probably threw them off a little bit. Thinking about the quarterbacks, there was nothing really that really like jumped out. I remember Gavin came out and like the first 2 throws looked pretty good. And then after that, there was just really not much from either side. There you saw it looked like some accuracy issues, which has kind of been a little bit of a problem, I think. There were some balls that were overthrown, some balls that were underthrown. So that's something definitely they got to work on. But like we said, the receivers, nothing really jumped out to me. But the running game looked pretty good. I think Avery Young probably had the best performance that I saw out of the spring game. And I think with Kirk's offense, it's going to be a case of when something's working, he's just going to keep going back to it until, you know, the opponent can stop it. So as you saw throughout the spring game, it was just like hand it off to Avery Young. hand off to Avery Young, hand off to Avery Young. And it's like, that's probably going to be kind of the MO of their offense until like really a quarter, whether Gavin or Evan, really starts to pick it up when the receivers start to get their, footing under them. So that's probably going to be the case of their offense for a little bit, something they're going to have to work on, during the summer. And like you said, Chris, I think once again, defensively, that's going to be the strength of this team because like we've written in now a couple of articles is that they're focusing more, I guess, on violence. They're tapping into the dark side of Rutgers defense. So it's going to be cool to see, if they can, even last season, like as much as the offense kind of held them back, the defense still played well. So it's like, it's going to be interesting to see if they can take, even another step and just to see, what happens and if they can, raise the bar with their defense.
Richie, you were there for a miserable day on Saturday at SHI. What'd you see? What are some of your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, it's a two-horse battle for quarterback. I think that's kind of obvious. I think we all knew that. Anyone that's speculating that Johnny Shepard's going to get the job is just flat out wrong. I'm sorry, but like it's clear he had 3 attempts, maybe like 10 snaps total. I don't know who's leading. I would argue Wimsat's leading probably, but it's very close. Both looked average, meh. Running game, it is what it is. Like you don't have 2 of your key cogs there, and like Chris mentioned, in Sam Brown and Kyle Monangai. Salam looked good though, so that's always a positive. I would just put him at slot receiver at this point, but the slot receiver is a position battle too, because Dremels looks like he's beating out Rochelle right now, if I had to argue. But I don't know what's going to happen there. They need a receiver bad. I'm not going to bag on them too much because you weren't missing Brantley, you weren't missing Chris Long, and those are probably your top 2 receivers at the moment. I think everyone's super optimistic I don't even know the word. Everyone's really hoping that Isaiah Washington is going to step up, and he just hasn't yet. And I don't think he did in the spring game either. I don't think he showed much. They clearly need to hit the portal for that 100%. Offensive line, meh. Like Iron Brown's pretty solid, I think. Holland Pierce is a pretty solid tackle. I had one guy message me and he's like, "What'd you think of Dante Chin? He looked pretty good out there." And I'm like, "Yeah, that one where he let Kenny Fletcher like really walk around him, like, yeah, that was great." Like the backup line is scary. It's like scary bad. You have a converted defensive end in Kamar Missouri at one tackle. You have a redshirt freshman at the other tackle. The guards are a makeshift of former just linemen just moved around a lot. I think this offensive line needs a guard badly, needs another tackle badly. I think you gotta hit this portal hard. Like I know we're gonna talk about it in a few, but like I just think this offense is the same offense as last year. I don't think it's much different. I hate to be super negative, but the defense looks phenomenal. I think they look great. Now you could probably add another body in the secondary because you probably need another safety, I would say. Right now, like Charles Mgbako was back there. Like I know they wanted to play like that Izzy role with him kind of, but Igbinosin's not developing as much as I think they thought, and that's kind of why I think he was on the white team and not the Scarlet team, but that's just a guess on my part. Cornerbacks look fine. Linebackers are stacked for a change. Defensive line is really stacked. I just think this offense is it's meh again, and I hate to be negative, but it wasn't a pretty showing at that spring game. I know weather, blah, 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 inclement weather, this, that. It affects everything, but it wasn't anything impressive in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, how much we could realistically expect them to improve from last year. Like they didn't really change much on offense. Like if anything, they lost all 3 of their receivers who were all seniors. They lost their best offensive lineman. Yeah. They didn't really add any replacements there. So to expect them to look any better 6 months later, I think is kind of silly. And it is, like Chris alluded to, convenient cover fire that there was bad weather so that you can kind of chalk up their play to that. But I'm going to leave this to the room. Whoever wants to take this can. Did this team that we saw on Saturday on TV look really anything different than what you guys saw all spring?
I'll say it's kind of up to par of what I saw all spring. I thought. I mean, I don't know if we could talk about it really too in depth, but
no, just like a general vibe. Did this team look like light years different than you saw all spring when you were watching?
No, I mean, I would say it looked the same. I mean, the defense outperformed the offense in general. Throughout the spring. We saw what we saw. The run game did well, but in terms of the pass game, that struggled, and that's exactly what we saw on Saturday. So I don't think anything was really different. In terms of maybe the kicking game, we didn't really see much of the kicking game in the spring game, but I really think Jay Patel is really pushing Jude Mgbako there. So that's going to be an interesting battle, for training camp. And Jay Patel, he didn't play last year. Jude kind of took the reins. But it might have a new kicker this year. I don't know. It's too early to tell now. Obviously, they didn't get much work in the spring game other than a couple extra points or whatnot. But I mean, just in terms of generally speaking, like I said, the offense has been kind of down, and but I mean, like I said, you can't expect miracles in 6 months when you lose a lot of guys. But yeah, but I think the defense is just I think the defense is gonna be really awesome this year. I'm sure they're gonna add to it even more if possible, like Richie kind of alluded to too. So so.
I think special teams is a concern too, and no one's really talking about it. Like I know Patel is pushing Jude, like you said, but I don't know if either's really that great. On top of that, you have a new punter who looks, I know weather, blah blah blah, and then you have a new long snapper who apparently doesn't like. You saw the one snap to Flynn, and it was like, oh, there it goes. Like, all right, great, this is fun. So the special teams that used to be like one of their strengths is now in question, and then they don't even know who their kick returner is or punt returner. So I feel like special teams is an issue as well, and that's usually their bread and butter. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, you have to kind of wonder how much worse some of the games that we lost could have been without a guy like Adam Korsak the last few years, because how many 90+ yard fields did he create for Rutgers defense, where they had to just teams had to literally march the entire length of the field because he didn't kick the ball into the end zone. He pinned teams down inside the 10-yard line just consistently. So if we have a punter who's not kind of up to par with where Adam Korsak was, which is most likely the case because he's the best punter in program history, so that could, bode poorly for the team in general. I thought one of the more... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to add one more thing too. So we kind of talked about it after one of the scrimmages. I mean, I don't know if they would do it, but you remember kind of like teams in the past, and maybe like Alabama kind of had two kickers where they had a long guy and a short guy. Mm-hmm. I think you might be able. I mean, I don't know if they would do it. It might be a question, for the coaches in training camp, but maybe you could see Jude kick the long field goals and Jay kick the shorter field goals. I know one of the scrimmages, Jude kind of struggled, but then all of a sudden he blasted a really long 55-yard plus field goal. But so I mean, maybe they'll have that kind of situation. But I just want to throw that in the universe on the pod real quick.
Yeah, who knows? I could see them trying different things if the kicking game's not working. But I thought one of the more interesting things in the post-game presser that Schiano brought up, and it was one of the first things he talked about, was how they have some recruiting to do and they have some transfer portal work to do. Which, I mean, if he's saying that literally in the opening comments of the spring game presser, that means things are not looking good in my opinion. And I'm not somebody who's at practice every day, but Schiano does not say things. He's very careful with his words. And if he's saying that coming right out of the spring game, and he was talking about receiver and offensive line, that means that they probably are pretty serious about it. Richie, what are you hearing about, what they're going to target immediately following the spring in terms of transfer portal?
Wide receiver. Wide receiver. No, they need a receiver really bad. It's clear as day. They don't have any guys with experience, number one. You can argue Brantley, but he's coming off a broken foot. How much can you really expect the guy to do?
Yep.
And he's coming from a big level school. He's coming from, what was it, Western Illinois?
Western Illinois, yeah.
The
he got hurt in
Leathernecks?
November.
That's I think that's actually Jerry Kill's former stomping grounds. But
he was Northern Illinois.
Was he Northern Illinois? Oh no, he was Southern Illinois. He was the Slukes or whatever they are.
No, he was Northern Illinois' head coach. He was Southern Illinois' head coach, and then he went to Northern Illinois. So we're both
he did
right.
Both. But it wasn't Western Illinois. It wasn't a direct.
It was not Western.
Was it Eastern?
Illinois.
Did you go to Eastern?
No, he was not. He was not Buddy Tony Romo's. He was Southern and Northern.
Anyway, they need a receiver bad. Like, I think your slot's pretty fine. I think Rochelle or Dremel will step up. I think Dremel obviously did step up. I think Rochelle is going to be solid there. It's the other two receiver spots. They're vacant. Like, maybe Brantley could be good. I don't think he's a bad wide receiver. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1. I don't think he's a wide receiver 1 on any Big Ten team, if we want me to be honest. I don't think he's a wide receiver 2 on most Big Ten teams. He'd be a great wide receiver 3, but you get what you get at this point. So I think you go out, you just push for a wide receiver 1, you try to sell him, hey, you're going to get every fucking throw. Like, we have no one else. Like, you're the guy. Like, you want to be the guy, you could be the guy at a Big Ten level school. If you want to prove you're the best against the best comp, all right, you got about 3 seconds to break out of your route and get open, because that offensive line needs help too. And I think you need a lineman. Now, I keep hearing they want to tackle, but I'm like, you need a guard too, like, badly. I don't think Jafani's the answer there. Is he a solid player for his stature? Yeah, I think he's okay. But I think he was also supposed to come in as a center, and now you're like, all right, shit, we need a guard, so you go play guard. So I don't think, like, I think they need help. They need to get bigger in the guard spots too. Yeah, Dunlap's huge, but he's never, like, fully healthy again. I don't think he'll ever be fully healthy at that weight with a Achilles injury. I think that's the toughest thing ever to recover from. Is he solid? I'm fine with that. The left side's okay between him and Pierce. I think Ireland Brown's pretty good. I think Gus Sawinskis is pretty solid behind him. I'd argue Chafani should probably be pushing that center spot, but you have him at right guard, like I said. I think he's meh. I don't think he's great. I think he's a solid player. And then your tackles need him, who, has like 7 games under his belt total? Like, and he's not even, like, tall. Like, Greg wants these tall, massive dudes at the tackle spots, and I think he's 6'4", 6'5". Like, I'm not saying you have to be 6'7", but I mean, it's a big switch up from Holland Pierce, who was your right tackle last year. But I think those are the two major needs. You probably need a tight end too, if you want my honest opinion, but I don't think they're going to do it. And again, like, I know they landed a bunch of DBs, but that DB room isn't as deep as people think it looks like, especially at the safety spot. So I don't think they would be opposed to adding a safety if they could. So
yeah, no, that all makes sense. And obviously, normally the spring game, you would have a ton of visitors. What did you hear about how the visits went? Was there a big group there? I'm sure that the weather deterred a lot of kids.
Yeah, so they actually hosted a Michigan State commit, Ja'Kai Howard, I think it was. I gotta double check that. But yeah, Alex is gonna have something at, like, by the time you're listening to this, it'll probably be out. A bunch of reactions from kids. It actually went pretty good. There's a couple guys scheduled official visits based off of it, in Jalen Hornsby and Willie Love, 2 South Jersey kids. I like their chances for Love. I don't like their chances for Hornsby at the moment. There's also, I'm trying to think who else was on campus. Oh, Caden Brown was on campus again. I got to talk to him. We'll go in depth later on that, because he was at the camp that I was at on Sunday, but he was there. AJ Sarace was there. Yeah, I mean, overall, it sounded like a pretty good vibe from the recruits, but nothing imminent, nothing crazy. Obviously, Monte Keener committed, but other than that, he wasn't there, so it doesn't really coincide, I guess.
Yeah, so he visited recently, though. So it looks like he was on campus on April 22nd, and then he went home and I guess thought it over and decided to commit to Rutgers. Is that kind of how it went?
Yeah, pretty much. Do you want to just go in depth a little bit with Monte?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so yeah, he's unranked currently. He'll be a 3-star. We've submitted it. We're just kind of waiting for it to get put on his profile. I think he's pretty athletic for his size. He's like a legit 6'6", 6'7", 215 pounds. So clearly thin, really thin for that height. He needs to pack on some pounds. He is thin, but I think he's actually a decent blocker. Solid route runner. He doesn't do anything crazy. His numbers weren't crazy either. I think it was only like 380 yards, but it's a tight end, so it's like, whatever. He's not going to early enroll. We know that. I think it's a decent commit. I don't think it's like that bad. I think he's in the lower half of the Michigan prospects. I think he's ranked around like I don't know how far our Michigan actually database goes, but yeah, I mean it's an okay get considering you're going to take 2 tight ends in this class. I think he's pretty solid. I think he's, like I said, he's athletic. And you're going into Michigan again, like, which is interesting. You're just going to keep hitting these Midwest schools, which they kind of haven't really done in depth since they joined the Big Ten. You'll have a kid here or there, but now that's like Michigan, Wisconsin, There's someone else I feel like I'm missing.
Iowa.
We get a lot of kids from Ohio.
Yeah.
They're definitely expanding out into Big Ten country like they haven't before. Back in the day, we landed like Tyler Wiegers as the quarterback commit, but we don't typically go out to the Michigans very often.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting that they're actually going to do this more and more. There's an Illinois tight end that they're also after, and Julian Johnson. Just had to pop up the list. There's too many names to remember. But yeah, no, it's a solid get. Like I'm not going to complain about that part of recruiting. I'll complain about the rest of the recruiting.
So speaking of recruiting, you were at the Under Armour camp yesterday, which
Yes.
you were a masochist this weekend, just standing out in the cold and the rain, watching football.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about what you saw at the Under Armour camp. I know that there's a lot of Rutgers targets and commits there. Tell us about overall what you saw.
Yeah, so first things first, AJ Sarace, I got to see him in person for the first time in a while, and he looked the part. I was a big fan. Throws a nice ball, throws a pretty hard ball. He was accurate. He was accurate on the run. I like him, and I think he's actually stockier than you think. And I wouldn't be shocked if he played early, to be honest. I thought he was a really good player at the camp. It's tough to judge these guys because he was hitting dudes in the hands, but at the same time, like it's downpouring like monsoon weather, and it's just like, all right, well, shit. So you're gonna see a tape I'm gonna put out later of all his throws. I sat there and in the rain, pouring rain, ruined my laptop a little bit, but we'll figure that one out. There's always a bounce back, but yeah, no, I got a ton of clips of him. I thought he looked really good. I was super impressed, and he was throwing the ball to Corey Duff, who was also there. Corey looked really good. Still think he's a tight end and when it's all said and done, but I think after talking to him a little bit, he was at the spring game actually too. But after talking to him, it sounds like it's definitely Rutgers, UNC at the top. I'd say Miami's right there, if not second place. I know previously I had UNC and Miami at the top, but I think it's UNC Rutgers at the moment. We were talking just about his visit. He's very close with Ian Strong, and the fact that Ian Strong's at Rutgers is definitely going to help them there. Florida State's also making a push, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then the South Carolina quarterback commit, and Dante Reno was there. He's probably the best quarterback of the group. He started recruiting Corey Duff like literally in front of me, and I'm just like, you guys are like, all right, this is what we're doing now. So that was kind of cool. It was cool to see and just listen. And but yeah, like I was in the middle of just talking to Corey, and he's like, "You doing an interview?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why, Dante?" And he's like, "Tell him to go to South Carolina." I'm like,
Oh my God.
"Okay."
Not how this works.
Yeah, it was funny. But other things, Caden Brown won one of the multiple D-line MVPs. I thought he was solid. I didn't think he was like phenomenal, but I thought he was a solid player that in the camp. He's just quick off the edge. He needs to learn a couple more moves because his go-to move is just speed, which is fine. It's kind of like a Kenny Fletcher type of role, where he just needs to learn a little more technique and kind of play with his hands a little more and figure out how to get around people. But I'm trying to think who else. I feel like there's someone else I'm missing. I think that's about it in terms of Rutgers targets that I could think of.
What about overall top performers from the camp? You mentioned Dante Reno already, but who are some
Dante
of the other
Reno
standouts?
was great. Jacob Smith is going to cause havoc for Rutgers and other Big Ten teams. He's committed to, or Jared Smith, I'm sorry. Jared Smith is committed to Michigan. Jacob Smith is probably going to follow him to Michigan. They were both great on the edge. They both won.
Are they related or just?
Yeah, they're brothers.
Yeah. Okay.
They both won D-line MVP, and they play with Dante Reno. So it's like that whole Cheshire Academy is like stacked. like. So yeah, those two are going to be like studs. In terms of there was one quarterback I actually wanted to single out. Jesus, Frankie Williams from Red Bank Catholic. The kid throws the ball so effortlessly, and if you look at the one clip I put on, I think it was on my Twitter already. One of the like 100 clips I already tweeted out. He throws such a beautiful ball, and he just like literally just flicks it off the wrist. Like it is just really nice. He's a 2025. He's only got one offer from Maryland so far. He's a little shorter. He's probably around like my height, which is like 6 foot. If you're a girl talking to me, I'm telling you I'm 6 foot. If you're not a girl, 5'11" is probably about right. But yeah, so yeah, and he looked really good. I was very impressed by him. He's taken a couple Big Ten visits. He's been to Maryland. He's been to Penn State. He's also been to Pitt. Obviously, I know, not Big Ten before you yell at me. But he's been to all the local schools, and I'm like, dude, Rutgers has to get in on this kid. Like, this kid is good. He's one to keep an eye on. I said Corey Duff already. Luke Reynolds, who's a Penn State commit, looked really fucking good. He had his gloves on, and I don't want to hype him up too much, but he like took them off. He's like, dude, fuck these things, and just took them off. And then he just started using his hands even better. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, there's some other big name guys there, but nothing like no one Rutgers related really. There's some younger linemen there. I'm trying to think of who else. Adam Shavlin, I forgot about him. 2025 kid who's been to Rutgers like 4 or 5 times already. He was playing interior defensive line, and he's really fucking good. And he was raving about Marquise Watson, his relationship there. And if they can land him, that would be a huge get for the 2025 class. I know he's only I think a 5.63 star. That kid's got 4-star potential written all over him. Like he's just dominant. I'm trying to think. There's one other name I was thinking of. Richie James Jr. down at Camden. I think they're fools for not going after him. I know he's smaller. He's not the typical height like that Rutgers wants. I know he says he's like 6'1". That's bullshit. No offense, but he's probably more like that 5'11", 6 foot range, depending on who you're talking to. So and he's committed to West Virginia, but I think that's a kid you have to go after. Like you have to go after him quickly because he looked every bit of the part of a defensive tackle. A little smaller, but he's a quick, twitchy pass rusher in the interior, and that's a guy you need, especially in state.
Can he play the cocknose?
There you go. There's your comparison. Julius Turner. Not as thick, but he's quick and twitchy, man. Like there's so many young linemen there, and I was just like, what the fuck is this guy? And they're like 2027. I was like, Jesus, all right, never mind. Like I'll figure that one out down the line. But yeah, there's some young guys. It was a good camp. It was honestly probably the best camp I've seen in Jersey in quite some time.
Interesting. Well, a lot of names there for Rutgers fans to keep an eye on over the years, especially that quarterback for the class of 2025.
Yeah.
A few other football-related things I wanted to touch on. Obviously, the NFL draft was this past weekend. Rutgers had one player drafted in Christian Braswell in the 6th round by the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we had, I want to say, like 4 or 5 guys end up going to different teams as undrafted free agents. Does anyone have that list open in front of them so we can just kind of run down who ended up where? Chris, all right, you take it, Chris.
All you, buddy.
So obviously, Christian Braswell got drafted. He was the only one that got drafted 6th round to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll talk about him real quick. He had a great season. He was probably Rutgers' best cornerback last season. He graded out extremely well on Pro Football Focus, and I would talk about that on the pod a lot. He was one of the top in the country. He was 86.6, I want to say, something like that, 83.6, something like that. He was one of the Big Ten's top cornerbacks on PFF. He had a couple picks. He wasn't like the starter per se to start out the year, but he kind of worked his way, to get more playing time as the season went along, and he did really well. So I was glad to see him drafted. I had a feeling he'd get drafted. He didn't have the best 40 time, which I wasn't sure about. But actually we'll talk about that for somebody else. So speaking about the signings. On Sunday, we'll start up with Sunday, then we'll go back to Saturday. Rutgers walk-on cornerback Keenan Reed got a mini camp tryout with the Jets. He obviously didn't really play at Rutgers, if at all. I didn't really check on that, but he ran like a 4.340 at pro day, so I'm sure that helped him there. And in terms of the other guys who signed after the draft, we have Aaron Cruikshank to the Bears. Christian Izien to the Tampa Bay Bucks, Efine Major to the Seattle Seahawks, Sean Ryan to the Baltimore Ravens, and Avery Young to the 49ers. I think I saw Christian Izien had a couple options specifically, but chose the Bucks to try and get him, I guess a better shot at making the roster. So I think Izien's going to be a baller. I mean, I know he kind of was held back by his height, but I think he's going to be a baller. He's the ball muscle. He's always around the ball. I think he's going to do really well. Sean Ryan's a taller receiver that obviously, the Ravens, they draft a receiver and they need receiver help for their new long-term contract, Lamar Jackson. So, who knows if he'll stick, but he's a bigger target there. Cruikshank, I think he lost his step since his injury, but maybe another year past his injury, he'll be able to get that step back. And he's obviously a good return guy. He's improved as a receiver since he came to Rutgers. So yeah, that's the rundown as far as I know so far. I guess the two big guys that I think maybe had a shot to get picked up somewhere were offensive lineman J.D. Dorenzo. I thought he was a sleeper pick to get picked up somewhere. He beat out a lot of guys' numbers, from the combine. Maybe the extra year in the Big Ten coming over from Sacred Heart would have helped him, but he was only at Rutgers for a year. But I think he's good. He's a good player. He was Rutgers' best lineman last year. And then obviously, Adam Korsak, he didn't get picked up anywhere. And three punters did get drafted. One of them from Wingate. I don't even know where that is. I've never heard of it.
It's the D2 school, apparently.
Okay. My wife, I was watching the draft in the spring game upstairs, and my wife was like, "What the hell is Wingate?" So I don't even know. So yeah. So those are the guys who got drafted, or for basketball, and the guys who got picked up so far.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that Korsak didn't get picked up almost immediately after the draft. I think his unorthodox style scared a lot of teams off. I heard that he's got one minicamp invite to the Chiefs right now. So I do I think he'll play professionally somewhere next year, whether it be the XFL, whether it be Canada, whether that be, some other upstart league. But he's going to, the USFL, he's going to play somewhere. And I think he just needs to prove that he can do the things that a conventional punter can do. But till then, I think teams just, especially on special teams, like they don't like to fuck around. They don't like to, go with a style they're not comfortable with. Most of these guys in the NFL just want you to just, yeet it down the field, not necessarily like try and use a scalpel with punting. They just want you to use the sledgehammer, which it's not his style.
Yeah, they probably don't trust that rugby style, because the second you take off a little bit, you're just gonna get drilled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the NFL should. I think the NFL should. I don't know. I think the NFL should really kind of look at that more closely, or at least get a punter that could really coffin corner, as they call it. I mean, like it's like they dude who won the Ray Guy Award a couple years ago from San Diego State. Like he wasn't really a good punter. All he could do was kick the ball. I think Adam Korsak was a punter. Like he could. I mean, we've seen him for 5 years, whatever it was. He could kick the ball. He can kick the ball far. Maybe it's not in the air far, but it'll roll perfectly down to like the 3-yard line. Like I've seen nobody else do something what he could do. The ball could stop at the 5-yard line and die at the 1. Like, I mean, I think the NFL should really kind of change up their ways. I mean, I know the NFL maybe doesn't really kind of think special teams is that much of a big deal in terms of offense defense, but I think Adam Korsak could have really kind of changed the game a little bit on special teams and punting, but I guess he didn't get that chance right now. I know Mike was talking about the USFL. He was actually drafted by the USFL. I mean, he didn't play. Yeah. He's been at practice and everything, during the spring. But technically, he was drafted. I forgot to ask him about that at Pro Day, how that was all going to work. But technically, he was drafted for that.
Yeah, I know Shiano always likes to, compare his game to like a golfer, and it seems like a lot of NFL punters have one club in the bag, and it's the driver, whereas Korsak has an entire bag full of clubs, and he can use them when he sees fit. But yeah, maybe you'll see him get picked up. I hope so, because he's one of the best players to ever play at Rutgers. One other interesting note from the football side of things, we've talked about the whole Nike Adidas battle that's looming for Rutgers athletics. I think maybe a hand was tipped a little bit this weekend. Max Melton in his locker, he posted on Instagram, he had Nike cleats that were in there, and they were all very bright red. So I maybe he bought them on his own, but are you hearing anything regarding the apparel deals coming up, Richie?
Yes, so I'm trying to pull that up currently. So yeah, he had Nike cleats in his locker. I asked around about it. Everyone's like, yeah, he likes working out in Nikes once in a while. Like that's his call. Like when he's with the team, he has to wear Adidas. That's how it works. Now, did you tip your hand a little bit? I think so, but that's just my opinion. So here's the latest. Put it in the group chat the other day. So Adidas is putting together an offer to try to retain Rutgers. We all know like Adidas this, Adidas that. Like everything's Adidas currently.
All day I dream about sports.
Yeah, that is right. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's a hell of an acronym. What do you call it? So yeah, it sounds like they're gonna put an offer up to Hobbs. Usually this stuff's done by now because like last time it happened, it was February we found out about the deal before it expired in June. So they're putting together a deal right now. But the general feeling is right now is even if they put up a really good offer, Hobbs is going to ask Nike to at least match or beat it. It does sound like Pike's the driving force behind this in the basketball program because if you think about it, the whole pitch is going to be it's only going to be like what, a 3 to 5 year deal. The whole pitch is going to be in year 2, you're going to have Ace Bailey and possibly Dylan Harper on the national stage, like wearing Nike or Adidas. Like that's it's going to showcase the most. Even if Adidas offer is a little bit higher than Nike's, it does sound like they're going to have to take it to the next level. They want either Adidas is going to have to take it to a higher level or they're just going to go with Nike if it's a really close deal. So that's what it sounds like at the moment. It sounds like everyone kind of prefers Nike, whether it be football or basketball. I know wrestling shoes, they prefer Nike as well. You guys can talk about all the tech you want on the message boards, but like at the end of the day, it's what the kids prefer, and the kids right now prefer Nike. Like you could say it's because of how much they promote it better or whatever, but a lot of kids I talk to in terms of basketball alone prefer Nike stuff. Football, Nike. Wrestling, Nike. Like I hate to say it, I like Adidas clothing. I think their apparel is really comfortable. I think the Ultra Boosts are fucking awesome. But at the same time, like if I'm playing basketball, I'm wearing Nikes. Like that's just the way it is.
They got their own movie starring Matt Damon.
There you go. That's true too.
I want to highlight something that Geo Baker on the board said, just for the people who think this doesn't matter and that we're overblowing this. Geo Baker, direct quote, "I was in the rare minority who didn't care about the apparel brand. We definitely lost recruits over not being Nike. It matters." Next post, "Nikes are 10 times more comfortable. Even for me, someone who claims not to care. If you look back at my career, there was about 3 different models of shoes I wore in 5 years. It's more than status." Additionally, he said, LOL, somebody's told him he was wrong again. And he said, "Tell that to the recruits that didn't join my teams at Rutgers. LOL. If you did a survey to college basketball players, Nike or Adidas, Nike comfortably wins." This is from, one of the best players at Rutgers of all time. This is a guy who would know. He's friends with everybody. We lost players due to not being Nike school, and we're going to continue to be at a competitive disadvantage if we're playing with Adidas gear. That's just my opinion, but I think it's backed up by a pretty good amount of anecdotal information. So,
yeah. So Nike checks over stripes.
Checks over stripes. Basketball over football. This is a good time to pivot to basketball because while we did talk, the first 35 minutes of this podcast about football, there was a lot of basketball stuff that happened as well. We had previously, talked about BAYE and NDONGO having, some second thoughts about coming to Rutgers. Sounded like his handlers were kind of taking the reins here of his recruitment. He officially decommitted. Richie, what are you hearing regarding BAYE NDONGO's recruitment now?
Carl Hobbs, Georgia Tech. Carl Hobbs, Georgia Tech. Like that's Hobbs recruited maybe one dude to Rutgers ever, and his name's BAYE NDONGO. So, I'm not going to hate on Hobbs, but like he's going to take his guy with him, so it makes sense. That's fine. I'm sure some others are going to reach out. We know Georgetown reached out not too long ago. Maybe they try to get back in the fold, but it does sound like Georgia Tech has a significant lead there. NDONGO and his guardian are both very close with Carl, so it makes sense for him just to probably take a visit, and that will probably be it. And I expect him to go to Georgia Tech. I already submitted the FutureCast for it. It is what it is. Like you couldn't keep him. On to the next one. Not really much else to say for BAYE NDONGO.
And who could that next one be? I know we had previously talked about Mackenzie and Mgbako. The reporting there was good. I think Rutgers being involved did not necessarily mean that Rutgers was the favorite, that Rutgers was in the top group. It was just that Rutgers was involved in the recruitment. We checked that with multiple sources, including people very, very close to Mackenzie and Mgbako. He took a visit to St. John's this past weekend. Sounds like he's got a visit for going to Kansas lined up. He's got a visit to Indiana lined up. And he's got a visit to Louisville lined up. Now, that's only 4 visits. Do you see him making more than 4 visits, or you think? I know this is a very low information type recruitment. So, what are you hearing regarding Mackenzie and Mgbako, and where do you think his recruitment takes a turn to?
So, number one, he's also exploring the pro route. So he's going to look into Overtime Elite and the G League Ignite. I don't know how that works in terms of visits. Like, it's not an official visit technically. I don't know. Like, can you take an official visit to those things? Like, or do you just show up and it's like, here, like you can have food for the day, but you can't tell the NCAA. Yeah, I don't know how that works, but he's definitely exploring the pro route as well. So he's not deciding until June. That's like I think Travis Graff had that before anybody, and we posted on our board right away. So he's gonna decide after all this stuff. He's gonna graduate June 3rd, I believe it is. He's gonna make a decision after that, and that's from a very, very, very close source to him. You can't really get much closer than this source, but it's I don't know. I mean, that's a long time. Like that's over a month, and he's already taken one of those visits. He's probably gonna take 3 others that we know of. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw him on campus just once. Maybe they're gonna try to make it discreet. I would assume they're not gonna like publicize it, but Mgbako's posting all this stuff on social media now. So now it's like, all right, well, there you go. Everything's just kind of public. I don't think Rutgers ends up landing him. I think Rutgers is still pushing for him. Shouldn't say I think. I know Rutgers is still going to push for him. They're trying to get him on campus, but I don't think there's any guarantee he'll be there. But I think they're going to push extremely hard to get him there just to kind of show him what could be. He hasn't been to Rutgers, I think, since 2021, I believe, in that Clemson game. So a couple of things have changed a little bit since then.
Well, in a recruiting aspect, he hasn't, but he has been on campus as recently as March for an actual basketball game that he played in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a little different when you play on campus versus taking a visit. You get the whole
it is different. But I just wanted to clarify for the people who be like, "What are you talking about? He just played a game here."
That's not how it works. But everyone's going to complain about that. But yeah, no, I think there's a chance he still gets to campus. There's a lot of time. There's still 4 weekends left until more than that. Jeez, 1, 2, 3, 4 weekends left until June 3rd, that's when or June 2nd, whenever he graduates. And then he technically, there's no saying he's going to decide immediately after. We just know it's going to be post-graduation decision. So
I did want to bring up one. You had heard that Rutgers might be in a sneaky good position. And as an in-state school, Rutgers has certain advantages in terms of getting kids eligible to play for Rutgers if they're an in-state kid. Now, if there are any academic issues here, which I'm speculating, could that possibly be why Rutgers is in a sneaky good position that they can get him into school easier than the other schools?
Look at Tosh Harris, man. How do you know? The guy didn't qualify he didn't qualify for Kentucky, but he got to Rutgers?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to tell me how?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it sounds like there's some kind of academic advantage where if you're in state and you have I don't even know how it works. I'm not even going to speculate, actually. It's just there's an easier way for an in-state kid to get into an in-state school or an in-state college versus in-state university, versus going out of state. So now there's a rumor from someone I know that the Filipowski thing's just kind of a little bit of a cover-up. It obviously played a role because that's like a big chunk of your starting playing time.
Did somebody say cover up?
There we go.
The Reynolds is back.
Our sponsor Reynolds Wrap would like to stop by and say this podcast is brought to you by Reynolds Wrap, the world's #1 aluminum foil brand, the official aluminum foil brand of Rutgers Athletics. Anyway, what were you saying, Richie?
I don't know. I don't even remember now. Yeah. So apparently there's a little rumor out there that he didn't qualify for Duke, and that's playing a factor as well. How much of that is truth? That's why I said the word rumor, because if I didn't, that would be irresponsible journalism. But I said rumor. Yeah. So I mean, we'll see what happens there. So it'd be interesting. I know Slick Rick isn't gonna let some fucking academic thing hold him back. So he'll find a way to get Mgbako in there. Mgbako and his two new personal trainers. We'll go with. Yeah, that guy's interesting. But no, I think most of those schools, it sounds like, are NIL schools too. Like you go St. John's, Louisville. Who's the other one? There's a third one. Oh, Kansas, who just is paying everyone, it seems like.
Indiana too.
Indiana, yeah. So I mean, a lot of NIL being involved here. It sounds like Rutgers NIL is kind of tied up a little bit elsewhere. So, like I said, I don't know if they'll get him on campus. They might, but it sounds like they might have an academic advantage as well. So maybe he commits to Indiana, and they're like, oh, we can't get him in. Rutgers could do.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Okay, so stay tuned because I'm sure more will be developing. But will he take a visit to Rutgers or not? To be seen.
Yeah.
But in terms of recruiting, there were two new transfer portal names that have cropped up over the past week that Rutgers is showing interest in. Let's start with the Florida State big man, Naheem McLeod. He is a massive, massive player. I think he's 7'4".
Yeah.
He's originally from the Philly area. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. What are you hearing around Naheem McLeod?
So Kansas is getting involved. Who else did I say before? Someone else. Well, I gotta pop it back up. I have everything written down in like a spreadsheet. So if you ever hack my Google account, like you get all the info before everyone. Yeah, Naheem McLeod. Kansas is recently involved. They're kind of showing interest. They're going to try to get him on campus. I think Gonzaga was showing interest. I don't see Rutgers being a factor here, to be honest, just because this kid's going to start wherever he goes, it sounds like. And Rutgers kind of doesn't have a starting role for him at the moment. I still think Cliff comes back. He's not going to Europe. Just flat out say that. Like, it's just not happening.
Yeah, I think the direct quote you got was Cliff would laugh at that idea.
He'd laugh in your face if you even suggested it. Miami's pushing McLeod too. He's got, I don't even know what the list is. Villanova is pushing McLeod. Former LaSalle head coach Ashley Howard, who's rumored to be going to Villanova, is very, very close with him. So that's another rumor right there. There's so many programs after him. Like I don't see Rutgers being a factor here for McLeod. And it's crazy just because I feel like people are kind of just basing it off his height of like what his potential could be. Don't get me wrong, he's a good high school recruit, so he has potential, but he averaged 3.8 and 2.7. Like, it's not like record-breaking numbers. And now he's hearing from every high major possible. Like, this is just the way the portal works at this point. If you're a big man and you average decent numbers, or not even average numbers, below average numbers, you're going to go higher up. You're going to transfer up. If you're an offensive lineman in the portal and you're average in the Power 5 level and you're average at the G5 level, you're going up a level. Like, that's just how it works now. It's weird.
These guys just looking at it like, I can fix him.
Yeah, let me go fix the 7'4" guy that had 1 block per game. Like, I don't know. It's
and this is also a kid who played 13 minutes a game on a 9-23 Florida State team this past year in a weak ACC conference.
But he's got every high major after him. It makes no sense. Like,
there's just a scarcity. Like, there's there's not many guys who. I mean, when you put in 3 years in a college program in a weightlifting, you have a college ready body at this point. You have a college ready game, maybe not, but a lot of coaches who a lot of these coaches have, or not everyone has the job security of Steve Peichel. Let's just put it that way. You have to get guys who you feel you can rely on, because a lot of these guys might only feel like they have 1 or 2 years to kind of prove that they are a high level D1 coach. So you kind of need to take some risks, like a guy with Naheem McLeod. I could change him. I could make him better. He has everything he needs to be successful. I've turned player X into a good player that reminds me of him. So that's why I want to add him.
How many 7'4" guys you got walking around? But
I was gonna say, I'm surprised Purdue isn't in on him.
Yeah. Well, Edie can come back, right? Technically.
Yeah.
So
So you
There
could
you
have
I think
7'80" and 7'4" McLeod.
Be a hell of a fucking backup.
yeah.
The other transfer portal guy, and his name is like the
God.
creative player from those college football games back in the day, where you just have like this totally off the wall name. His name's Wiza Panzo. He's currently he's in the transfer portal, but he previously had spent 4 years at Stetson University. If that school sounds familiar, it's because former Rutgers basketball player Jonathan Mitchell is an assistant coach there. But this is a kid who averaged 8.6 points this past season, but he's primarily a sharpshooter. So he averaged 6.5 field goal attempts a game, and 5.5 of those field goal attempts were 3-pointers. So he shot 47% from three on an average of 5 per game. So this is a guy who, he's deadly from beyond the arc. What are you hearing around Wiza Panzo?
Yeah, so I was talking to someone about him yesterday. They're not sure if he'll be able to contribute that way at this level, but I mean, 3-point shooting is 3-point shooting. If you can hit at that rate, I mean, he's shooting 20-something% from 2, which is wild, and then he shoots fucking 47 from 3. Like, I don't know what this guy's doing, but just, dude, don't attack the rim anymore. Just constantly spot up or something. But it sounds like Rutgers could have him if they really want him. I know Penn State's also showing interest, so it's not like unheard of for a high major to go after this kid. But yeah, I mean, Jonathan Mitchell being there definitely helps. He's still a big Rutgers guy, even though he's at Stetson right now. 3-point percentage wise, I think that's actually that'd be the highest on the team. That's higher than Cam Spencer's, who hit at 43%. Like, and the only other guy, he's the only guy on the team that hit over 40% from 3. So you add this, like, you're playing modern basketball for a change. Like, this is fun Rutgers. That offense would be insane, kind of, but
you combine their percentages, you're shooting 90% from 3.
That's,
I mean,
how
you stopping that? It's an automatic win.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be interesting, especially because Mawat Mag is the starter as soon as he comes back. He's not going to be back probably till December, from what I'm hearing. Fully back. Now, he might be able to sneak in a couple games in late November, but I don't think he'll be a full-fledged starter until December, and that's the earliest. So, I mean, I don't think it's a bad addition if you can get him. He's an Ontario native, same as our favorite ARMOUR in Eugene. He was also an Ontario native, kind of a similar height, but nowhere near the same weight. I think Weez is skinnier, if I recall. If I read that correctly. Yeah, Weez is 210. Eugene was listed 245 at Rutgers. I'm going to call BS on that one. You can add probably 10, 15 pounds there. But yeah, no, I mean, I think if you can land him, I think it's a solid piece. It's just a guy that can kind of fit for now. Defensively, I don't know how good he is because I didn't really watch his full tape, but he averaged almost a steal per game. That's not awful. Like, that's kind of what most of these portal targets are. And he doesn't turn the ball over, which is really nice. Only 0.4 turnovers per game, and he played all 31 games. Oh, he played all 31 games and started 30 of them for Stetson. Big leap in competition, but I don't think it's the worst addition. It's a depth piece. Don't think like adding him is going to be like a full-fledged, like, he's all Big Ten. Like, this is just depth. This is what you need. We saw it last year with the injuries. You need depth at every position. So I don't think it's a bad addition if you can get him.
No, I don't either. I think his game would translate nicely as a 7th or 8th man, the guy who you throw in who can hit a 3 when you need it. He's a pretty good free throw shooter as well. He's a 77% free throw shooter in his career. He shot 79% last year. He shot 88% the year before that. So this is the kind of kid who hopefully you don't have to start him, but if you were to have him come off the bench and he was okay with playing that role because he started 44 games out of 120 in his career at Stetson, I'd be fine with this ad, but obviously not a priority 1 transfer portal guy.
No, I think you throw him in there as like an Oscar Palmquist type role. Like, if we need him, we need him, but we're not going to play significant minutes. We're just going to give you a couple minutes, just prove you could be a shooter. And honestly, if he catches fire one game, it's like, all right, shit, here goes a 20-point performance. Like, it's not unheard of. Like, so I don't think it's a bad addition whatsoever.
Nope. So the last basketball thing I have here is the assistant coaching vacancy. It sounds like a little bit of clarity as to where the search is going, or at least the search is beginning to wind down. Tell us what you're hearing regarding the basketball assistant coaching hole that we're trying to fill.
Yeah, so I always say this, but if you're not on the message boards, you're missing out. You're going to get this before the podcast, before YouTube, before all that good stuff. Steve Pikel's down to 3 to 4 candidates. It's his top candidates. He's having them on campus for interviews. So if any of you are bored and you have nothing to do in the next week, go stalk the rack, see what happens. See if you notice anyone. If you don't know who the coach is, take a picture, send it to me. I'll figure it out. One of you nut jobs sent me a picture of Ed Cooley this week and said, "Is he with a Rutgers target right now?" No, it was not a Rutgers target. It was just a picture of a South Florida transfer that Cooley's after, but nothing to do with Rutgers, so don't worry about that. But I do appreciate the effort. The fact that he had to take a picture of Ed Cooley while I was eating dinner was pretty impressive. But Pikel wants to have his top 3 to 4 guys on campus for interviews very soon. Sounds like we mentioned last week, it sounds like Mitchell's name is starting to trend a little bit higher. I don't know where he falls among that list or if he's even on that list technically, but I know he's being considered for at least a position on this staff, whether it be on the court, which is one of those 3 main assistants, or maybe even off the court. There's a lot of potential there for Mitchell to be on this staff in some capacity next year, and I think that would be a home run hire no matter where you put him. He's proven his track record, or has a proven track record at Stetson already. Mind you, it's Stetson, but he's also recruiting really well. I'm hearing he's in it for several Power 5 transfers currently, and he just landed a Minnesota transfer at Stetson. That's pretty impressive. It's Stetson. The Hatters aren't the best program in the world, but he also helped them. I think it was this past season, their first winning season in 25 years or some shit, and their highest win totals in the last 30 years. I know it's not all him because he's not the head coach, but damn, it's impressive. So, and then Rutgers alum, of course, and he still loves Rutgers. Someone said they saw him at EYBL, not this weekend, last weekend, talking to Pike. So, speculation on that person's part. No photo sent from that Rutgers fan, but hey, like I said, if you guys want to send me little scoops like that, you see shit, hey, send it to me. I'll figure it out.
Hide in the bushes somewhere.
Yeah, that's fine. Just watch out for Rutgers PD, man. Their parking tickets are insane. Chris was out for that one too.
No joke there.
Yeah.
I don't think you've covered Rutgers or went to Rutgers and didn't get a nice little present from the RUPD at one point or another. I definitely had some when I was on campus.
Dude, they're a mess. When Ash was here, it's funny. We used to park in that tennis court lot, and I thought it was perfectly fine. One day they're my sister somehow, I don't know how this happened, but I got tickets on my account, and I'm I didn't even know because I graduated at that point. I'm I don't know. My sister's yeah, they're not giving my degree until you pay your parking tickets. It's what the fuck?
What?
We have the same last name, obviously, but I was how does that work? Number one, no, I'm not paying those. Number two, I'm sorry, you're shit out of luck. You didn't graduate. That sucks. But no,
and that's why she didn't walk.
I had to go through the football department just to get those tickets taken away, and I'm Jesus, man, you're gonna attack my family because of this?
That's some fucking mafioso shit coming from the RUPD. Not surprising though.
Man. No, not surprising.
Insane. I don't get it. But that's really it for the assistant coaching thing. Should be wrapped up soon. EYBL took to Phoenix this weekend. I wanted to mention that real quick. Lathan Somerville, one of the top standouts. I think I mentioned this before. I don't know if I mentioned it on the pod or not, but I told you guys there's this one scout I know that's been scouting basketball for 25 years, and he's yeah, Lathan's not that good. And I'm all right, dude, whatever. He's I covered his dad. I was okay, that just tells me everything. But then all of a sudden, the very next week, Lathan's one of the top standouts at EYBL, and I'm all right, you going to give some headway here? No. I saw him in person. Okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. So I still think Lathan's going to be really good. He's at 92 now. I fully expect him to take a leap there. Doquan Warren took a leap up to 70s. He's probably going to leap up a little bit more. Dylan Harper and Ace are just who they are. They're studs. You're going to have such a top-heavy class. It's going to be insane. This roster next year, you'll get a glimpse of what a legitimate offense looks like with Fernandez coming in. I can't not laugh and say his name. And maybe you get a Weeza Panzo. Dude, I hope he comes to Rutgers. I would love it.
Just for the name alone.
Weeza Panzo and Fernandez, combined for 30 points. But yeah, no, I think this offense is you're gonna get a small glimpse this year, and then next year, that year with Ace and all them coming in. Holy shit, this is fun basketball. This is new age basketball. No more of this. I know, play defense first, offense second. This is offense first now. Rutgers is gonna score fucking points. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait. Cannot wait. We've gone through a lot of topics here, guys. We can go around the horn. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about, bring up, stuff we missed? I'll start with you, Chris.
Yeah, so actually, I thought about this earlier. Shout out to Rutgers women's basketball coach, Cookies Washington, for catching the punt at halftime in the spring game. I saw her getting coached up a little bit by Kenny Britt, and she caught the punt. She had a little fun with that. And then earlier in the week, they brought in a 4-star transfer, Maya Petticourt from, I believe, South Carolina. Texas A&M. So I mean, they're on the rise there. Obviously, they have a lot of holes to fill. The roster is nowhere near complete right now, but they did also bring in, I'm sure you guys talked about it a week or two ago, Destiny Adams from North Carolina. Obviously, they're recruiting her brother from Man Squad now. I think he's a sophomore, going to be a junior. Something to keep on there. And I mean, Cookies Washington, they're bringing in a couple of transfers, and they're restacking the roster. I was kind of impressed with them last year. I thought they really kind of overexceeded any expectations anybody had. And I think they're going to be a good program in the next couple of years as they kind of get the roster back in the fold. They also have a really good freshman last year also who made headway in the Big Ten. So I think they'll be just fine after everything that went down with that program. So, yeah.
What about you, Craig?
Tough loss yesterday for the Knicks, but it's a long series. Game one, usually in the NBA, it's a long series unless you're playing the Nets, but that's kind of how things go. But they just got to bounce back. Got to get hopefully Julius Randle, gets healthy, and then come back for game two, because they didn't play great yesterday, but they still kept it close. So I have a feeling this thing could be a pretty long series. I could see this thing going 6 or 7. Hopefully the Knicks, make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, something I don't think too many of us were predicting.
Well, if Jimmy Butler keeps playing like Michael Jordan, I don't know if anyone's going to...
Yeah, he got banged up yesterday. It looked like he rolled his ankle.
Yeah, so maybe that's the Knicks' good luck streak, but we'll see. Richie, what about you? What did we miss? Got anything additional you wanted to put out there?
Just got an email that was kind of interesting from one of my sources. Insiders. It says obviously it looks like they kind of want a big man coach for the Rutgers assistant thing, so that would lead more towards Jonathan Mitchell's name, so that would be very interesting. Also got a portal update. It sounds like the portal's kind of picked over, which we kind of knew already, and they're kind of late to the game. They definitely
football or basketball?
Both.
Both, yeah.
This was in regards to basketball, but they definitely want a 4 or 5. But it sounds like they might get burnt a little bit in terms of portal guy. They could definitely find a serviceable person, according to this source, but it's definitely going to be tough. And I think serviceable is probably the key word there. I don't think you're going to find a full-fledged starter. But, definitely something to keep an eye on with the big man coach thing, which would be really nice. Also, in terms of draft stuff, I was looking at next year's draft. I think the only draftable person at the moment is Max Melton. Other than that, I don't think Colin Pierce leaves. He's still a junior technically. I think it's really Max Melton. I think that would be your lone pick next year. Maybe you get a receiver that could be turning into a pick, but I think.
Let me push back a little bit there. So there are draft eligible players on the team.
Oh yes, of course.
So in terms of draft eligible guys, no. Aaron Lewis will definitely be a draft pick when he leaves.
Yeah.
Wesley Bailey will probably be a draft pick. I think Tyreen Powell will probably be a draft pick when he leaves.
Mm-hmm.
And those are, I think, the 3 that are definites in my eyes. And I think there are other players, especially on the defense, who could turn into NFL prospects as well. But either they're young or they're a transfer portal guy. Yeah,
I just don't know if anyone else is getting drafted. I could see like an Ahanatu or Isaiah Ayton getting like one of those rookie mini camps or an undrafted free agent deal. Maybe Deion Jennings even too. He's played really well lately. But for the most part, I would probably say Max is probably the most drafted. Actually, Max is a junior too, right?
Yeah, Max has 1 more year of eligibility after next year if he wants it.
Yeah, it's just when you're at college, I know everyone's like, why wouldn't you use the COVID year? And it's like, dude, man's been at college forever. Like at this point, like you kind of get tired of it. Number one,
the more you play, the more tape they have on you, and that can be as you could improve, and that's a good thing, or you could stagnate or regress a little bit, and it's terrible for you. And they really hold that against you.
That's true. Other than that, there was something else I wanted to mention. I can't remember what it was now, but scholarships. Expect the portal news to come out either today or tomorrow. I know everyone's like, well, the portal's closed, Rich. How did that happen? Well, they submitted their paperwork already. They just have to go through clearance and all that other BS shit. I don't understand why they can't just go right in, but I get it. Whatever. So I'm expecting right now. I'm looking at the scholarship chart. I know one name is definitely going in, or well, maybe not entering the portal. He won't be on scholarship this year, and that's I'm pretty sure that's CJ Hansen, who we haven't seen at all. I haven't seen him practice. He wasn't at the game. There's no show. I don't think he's injured, but could be a possibility. But I think he's probably gone. I think that's going to free up a ship. You're currently sitting at 86. That'd bring it down to 85. Obviously, you need to clear some room because Greg hinted you're getting portal dudes. So
yep.
Attrition's coming somewhere. Now, where's that coming? I'm going to go back with the offensive line, considering there's 1, 2, 3, 20-something offensive linemen. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have one thing we forgot to talk about. Probably the best feel-good story at Rutgers in a bit.
We forgot.
Reggie Sutton actually got some game time in the spring game. He played about 20 snaps. This is a guy who we haven't seen on the field since week 4?
I think it was week 3 of 2021.
Week 3 of 2021.
Delaware.
We all thought he basically was going to medically retire, but he's kept pushing through this. This is now almost 2 years after his injury, and he's on the field. And Schiano in his presser talked about having Ryan Neal, who had a similar knee injury his first time around at Rutgers, and then post-knee injury, he had 2 All-Big Ten seasons, or All-Big East seasons, I'm sorry. And then he went on to be a long snapper in the NFL for a few years for the Bills. Mm-hmm. So there is some kind of precedent at Rutgers for, guys who had really severe knee injuries coming back and having some success afterwards. But from what it sounds like, Reggie's just a great guy, and he's been working really hard, and he's made a lot of sacrifices to get back on the field. And I don't think it's, off the wall to say that if he's healthy, he's locked in as a starter along that line.
Yeah, so that could be the other guard role we were talking about before. And then I don't know what genius asked Craig about that question in the press conference, but it sounds like a smart reporter. Really smart, very responsible reporter.
On that note, I will be. I'm actually going to write about Sutton this week, so stay tuned for that. Some of the quotes are, he was a great quote. We talked to him for a long time. One snippet was how he'd go and do rehab, and he knew he'd be in pain because they stretch it, they move around, and he's screaming in pain, and he knows he did 12-hour rehab days for at least 4 months. It was insane. And then obviously he's worked his way back, and I was so excited to see him on the field. So I know what he's been through. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome story. Can't wait to read it. But yeah, just really happy to hear that he was able to make it back on the field, because it would have been pretty devastating to go through over 2 years of rehab and not actually make it back onto the field. And Richie, you've had 2 ACL tears, so you kind of know
cracked kneecap,
somewhat
ACL,
of what he's going through.
ACL,
yeah.
So I could see the minute he said the rehab thing with pain, and I'm like, oh yeah, you were on the bike, and he's like, the bike, yeah, the bike. And it's you're just supposed to go like this the whole time. And just until you can do a full circle. And once you do that full circle, it's just a quick behind your knee. And it's just what the? It's, I'm not reliving those days. Ever. Oh, God. But yeah. It's rough. It's not fun. But
so again, thank you guys for listening. This is a bit of a long episode. We had a lot of stuff we covered. I imagine we'll be recording at some point this week. Don't necessarily know what we're going to talk about, but the good thing about this is that there's always something that presents itself, whether that be basketball news, football news, wrestling news. Something's going to come up that will make it worthwhile.
We didn't talk about that, but we'll ignore that.
Yeah, Chris Cannon, the guy we alluded to, the Northwestern recruit, or the Northwestern transfer guy, ended up at Michigan. Michigan made a late push after it seemed like they were out of the running.
What do they do with those dollar
They
bills?
have a ton of
Where'd
they have a ton of NIL money to spend, and it sounds like Shane Griffith also might end up possibly going there, which is a shame because it sounded like he wanted to get a little closer to home, but we'll see. But we should have some clarity on that probably in the next coming weeks. But for me and all the guys, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.